he's very busy.
I just couldn't find
The
the
dates here mostly.
Okay, now Bob.
And I asked two people. I still couldn't find it. Isn't that awful? It's good I left at the crack of dawn. Oh,
Bob? Bob?
1.5 minutes.
we want to. Let's see, I did bring music up.
If anyone has a cell phone, would you please turn them off?
Oh, yes, of course.
Because I think I hear noises.
I once had a headmaster who when the phone went off, one of the women lower school teachers was sitting up front. And he said, "Ladies, would you put on your vibrators?"
Oh dear, oh dear.
I think I've said that before.
I hope not.
I've got just as few
I
laughs.
hope not.
Well, good evening and welcome to our first concert of the season. This is a very special concert, as you know. It's in memory of a very, very lovely Scottish lady, and we'll have some songs sung in memory of her, dedication to her later. And so it's good to see you all. But we will begin. I will say no more because I've been accused of verbosity. It's not true, but all the Trumps in the group accuse me of verbosity. But anyway, we will start with our the Baroque, the back to Baroque, forward to Baroque. What is it?
Whatever.
Generations Baroque.
Generation Baroque.
The Generation Baroque.
Maybe you need
All right. Madam, would you like to say a few words? You might want to talk about some of the instruments.
Oh, yes, that's a good idea. Why don't you start?
Sure. Okay, so most of you that have been subjected to raising children have seen recorders, usually in a plastic variety, and usually, you know, playing Go Tell Aunt Rhody and Row, Row, Row Your Boat. It is a real instrument, so we'll be playing it tonight. They come in lots of different sizes, like from, you know, smaller than this to, you know, taller than me, and everything in between. We'll be playing an alto and a tenor on tonight's concert. And notice how they're shaped really funny. They're also shaped really differently on the inside. So since this is a much later instrument from about, you know, circa mid-18th century, it's actually, you know, the bevel, you know, goes down to a small hole, whereas this one, which is more in the style of an instrument from around the 16th century, it's straight and even flares out at the outside, so you get a much bigger, more open sound. Whereas this one is much more flexible and nuanced. So they, you know, as the instrument evolved, they moved towards a lot more sensitivity and flexibility with it.
Excuse me, can you tune that, or is it tunable?
Yeah, you can pull them out and push them in, and you can't tune it as much as you can a flute, because the hole that's really doing the work is a couple inches away from your mouth. But what you can do is you can blow louder or quieter, and as you blow louder it goes sharp, as you blow quieter it goes flat. You can also, of course, mess around with fingerings in order to adjust the tuning, and sometimes you'll do that. Okay. But it certainly doesn't have the same level of tuning flexibility that a violin or a flute does. Okay, we're talking about
Yes, why don't you?
This one is a Fiorbo, and I would stand up and show you, but it's not that easy to move around once I'm situated here. It's basically a bass lute with an extra long neck for lower strings. So the lowest string on the main part is a G, and then you get another octave down. It was popular in the Baroque period. It normally would have been animal gut strings. I use synthetic strings, so it stays in tune better. It has movable frets, so you don't necessarily play an equal temperament. Each key is tuned a little bit differently. And I'll also, in the second set we're doing, be playing a lute that is like this but smaller. And if you have other questions, I can answer more later on tonight, I think.
Do you want to talk about
Oh, we
that?
have anything now?
Sure, I don't know, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is a harpsichord. It's like kind of the grandpa or maybe the dad of a piano. Whereas on a piano, the keys are struck with little hammers. On a harpsichord, the keys are plucked with little tiny plectrum. And unlike a piano, which can hold tuning a little bit longer, a harpsichord tends to be a bit more temperamental. This is a rebuild of a 1969 instrument, and the keys are wood, and you're more than welcome to take a look when all is said and done. And it's a lot of fun. It has 2 sets of strings on it. One of the strings sound at middle C. That's an 8-foot stop, and then if I want to get louder, I can add a set of strings that sounds an octave higher. There's also, okay, so you get this. That's the 8-foot set of strings. 8-foot meaning the length of a string at middle C, kind of like on a pipe organ. And then if I want to add an octave higher to that, I get that. But it's not really in tune, and I wouldn't necessarily use that unless I'm playing something really, really, really loud. So I'm not going to use that tonight. There's also a handy little lute stop. So if I want to have more of a lute sound, or if I want to lute and riot, get that as well. An 8-foot and 4-foot. It's kind of like a damper, kind of softens the reverb a little bit. So yeah, this is a harpsichord.
Okay, and this is a violin.
You know about that?
This particular violin was made in 1740, and it was made by Mr. Carlo Landolfi in Italy, and it is a Baroque instrument. I'm not using Baroque strings, or I'm not using gut strings, and the instrument has been adapted to modern use because the neck has been grafted longer. The original Baroque instruments, the neck was about maybe 2.5 inches shorter, which had a different feel. It didn't go, you couldn't play as high, and the sound was a different quality sound. So the bow I'm using is a modern bow.
Okay, so we're going to be playing a Johann Christoph Friedrich Bach piece. This is interesting in as far as recorders pretty well died with the death of Johann Sebastian Bach. That was really the last major composer that wrote for the recorder. So why are we playing a piece that arguably doesn't have any business being played on a recorder? Well, one of the things that they did, as there were still recorders around, is in order to increase the marketability of the piece and who you could sell it to, you would make the flute part so that it would work just as well on a recorder. And in this part in particular, I mean, you look at it and everything about this part just screams that it's a recorder part. It sits right in the sweet spot of the recorder range. It uses, the techniques and intervals that are very friendly on a recorder. So this is a recorder part. It just happened to be made so that it would work equally well on a flute or a recorder. So
Let's do it.
let's do it.
Yeah, let's tune a little bit. The other novel thing is that this is today tuned to 415. Normally, violin is tuned to 450. 40. My brain is not working either. The difference is quite noticeable. The A would be, this is an A, that's what I'm playing at.
Yeah, so it's a full half step flat from modern. And what that gives you is a slightly more darker, nuanced sound.
And this violin likes this bridge.